Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Star Trek Picard Season 1 Episode 4, Absolute Candor. This video is part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Star Trek Picard, so I'll have to start with a spoiler warning for Picard up to Season 1 Episode 4. So if you haven't seen up to this point, you will not want to watch this video, otherwise some things will be spoiled for you. So I like this episode. I think this is a lot better. This is more like it, because I talked about how last week's episode I didn't really care that much for, and pretty much I thought that this show has been in a decline as far as quality goes since the premiere episode, which I loved. This episode felt more of an uptake of finally the show going in the right direction. First of all, like the episode itself, the way it's structured, just looking at it independently, even though it is part of a whole, it is a very, in my opinion, like well put together, well structured episode. And the fact that it fits into the serialized story so seamlessly and aimlessly, and yet has a very strong story in on its own is done really well, in my opinion. And this is something I think Discovery really struggled with and didn't really get quite as right. And I still stand by my statements that Picard is doing a much better job of telling an overall serialized story than Discovery ever did. But yeah, so this episode begins with a flashback. Again, it seems like every week they're beginning with a flashback, which I have no problem with. I think it's a very interesting format. It's working really well for them so far. In fact, the previous episodes, the flashbacks are probably the strongest part of the episode, but this one I think was strong overall anyway. But so we see go back to the time when Picard's first evacuating the Romulans, at this point they still think that Starfleet's going to help them, and they introduce like a sect, like clan of warrior nuns or whatever. Now, I got a sidebar here because I recently read this clickbait article which infuriated me, you might say, that was bitching and whining and complaining that these warriors, nun sect or whatever they're called, goes against canon and it defies everything the Romulans were established to be, and that is utter and complete, unobjectively bullshit. It does not at all define any of what the Romulans were established to be. Sure, this group was never introduced before, and sure, it's obvious that they just came up with them for this show, but there's nothing that defies the Romulans or how they've been established. And that's mainly because the Romulans have not been established that thoroughly. I'm sorry to break it to you. Like other species, like maybe the Cardassians or the Borg, have been explored a lot more. Or the Klingons, definitely the Klingons have been explored a lot more and established a lot more, so there's a lot less wiggle room. And if you did introduce the new facet of their society, it would be hugely at risk of defying what you already established with that species. But I hate to break it to you, the Romulans have not been established very well. And so this totally does not defy anything. I defy anyone who says this defies canon. I think that's bullshit. Because, first of all, I would say, now some people might say Nemesis isn't the best example to hold up, but I would say that the Remans introduced in Nemesis, because the movie Nemesis said that there's this whole other species that lived on the twin planet of Romulus, which has been mentioned before, Remus, but we never heard of the Remus. They just said, oh yeah, they were there all along. They were always the slave race. They've been there for centuries of tranquility. We just never saw them. To me, that was a lot more of defying canon than this nun warrior sect. And I think anyone who bitches about this is being petty and are flat out wrong. Just my opinion, I know, but I'm sorry, that's just what I gotta say out there. And plus, even like in the Next Generation and stuff, if you don't want to say Nemesis is the whole up, like they kept introducing more facets of Romulan society because, as I said, it wasn't explored. They were just these mysterious bad guys who would show up on a ship that was cloaked and do nasty stuff and be deceitful. That's all that was established about them. I'm sorry, but the Romulans are extremely vague, and plus, don't even get me started on that fucking J.J. Abrams movie, and how that was like a billion times worse what they did with the Romulans, make them have these tattoos, and don't get me started on that. So no, just don't. You're wrong. Anyway, sorry for that little sidebar. So I had no issue with this warrior sect of Zion. I thought it was actually I love how they even like Picard went around saying Jolan True, which is something that was established in the episode Unification, and I love that those subtle callbacks. And so anyone who says, oh, the writers of this show don't even know Star Trek, they don't know what they're talking about, they don't know what they're talking about, because there's a lot of subtle hints and clues to stuff that's going on that does harken back to, and I think this would go, because I like this introduction of this sect, because it takes the Romulans from what some people will refer to as a species of hats, that is just a plain, oh, they're deceitful, oh, they're like that, because they were never explored, they were two-dimensional, and this widens it. It makes it three-dimensional. Oh, there's different facets. There's a warrior nun sect, and there's different other facets around in the society that are totally different. Oh, there's this one deeper thing with the Tal Shiar that hates androids. It's like, that's another thing people are saying defied fucking canon, which is bullshit. No, this is actually good storytelling. This is taking a species that was underdeveloped and fleshing them out more. So I think Picard is doing for the Romulans what the Next Generation did for the Klingons, and what Deep Space Nine did for the Cardassians, and I'll fight anyone on that. Anyway, sorry. And we're only 4 episodes in this, so it's kind of early, but so far, like, they're really making the Romulans much more interesting than they have ever been. I do have to say that. So anyway, I knew, like, from the trailers that there'd be this Legolas character. And so when Picard says, oh, we have to go to this planet, I was like, yeah, he needs to go there so they can pick up Legolas, because I know he's going to be a main character in the show. And when they showed the flashbacks with the little boy, I'm like, oh, that's Legolas as a little boy. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, the character, God, I've got to open their names, so let me see if I can get this right here. Elnor, the character, the Romulan warrior, that, it's supposed to be a female sect, all-female sect of these warrior nuns, but, they raised the boy, and Picard was surprised that he stayed there, and so he became a rare male warrior. Yeah, like, he does look a lot like Legolas. I'm sorry. I think they totally took it. He does look really like a Lord of the Rings elf. Not just a generic elf, but a Lord of the Rings elf. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think they're trying to evoke that. And part of me thinks it's a little bit cheesy, but part of me doesn't mind. I actually think it's kind of cool that Picard this is a new kind of Star Trek show where we have a Han Solo type, we have a Legolas type, we have a nerdy doctor type, but I'm still not on board with Raffi. I'm sorry, she's still too cliche for me. I'm warming up to oh God, what the hell is his name? Rios? Yeah, I'm warming up to him. They're starting to flesh him out more, just like I hoped they would, which is good. So he's becoming less of a Han Solo stereotype, although he is an archetype that's still definitely there. So I like this ragtag group that they're putting together, except for Raffi. I'm still don't buy her as a character, and I think she's underdeveloped and just a cliche. But maybe they'll fix that, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see about that. Like, I love the scenes that we got with them on the ship, like, arguing what to do, and how Raffi was very much against going to, I don't know, she just seems, her adversarialness seems very artificial to me. It seems like it's ramped up just to create tension on the show. So I think I would still identify her as the weak point. But as far as this new Elnor character goes, I'm totally in. I think he's probably on track to be the badass of the show that everyone loves. I think they did a great job in this episode establishing his backstory, showing him as a kid, and exploring the situation of this colony and how they were all. I love the contrast. I thought this was done so well of how the flashback Picard went there and it's Picard and everyone's all happy and dancing around him, and then 14 years later everyone's like, fuck this guy, and like the implication of the sign that said Romulans only, and Picard just tossing it on the ground being like, oh, whatever. Like, I love that stuff. I thought that stuff was all amazing, all good stuff. Still completely on board with what they're doing. And as I said, I think the way this individual episode handled this story was really well done. And I like how the Eleanor guy ended up like cutting that dude's head off who was threatening to kill Picard, and how Picard was very much against that and kind of scolded him. Although I do think Picard was being a bit of a hypocrite, because he was like, please join my quest, please, and so he finally does, and then Picard has nothing but an asshole to him for joining a quest. Come on, man. Beggars can't be choosers. You're not really, if you desperately need him to join your quest, can't really bitch when he kills someone in order to save your life. I think that was a bit assholeless of him. Personally, this is me. Anywho, yeah, but the thing with the ship attacking them did feel like, ooh, we have to throw in some tension in there, and they had this mysterious stranger come and save them, and it ended up to be 7 of 9, which, would have been at least a little bit surprising or interesting had they not given away in the trailers that she was going to be in the show. So you're like, oh, okay, so that's how they bring 7 of 9 in. But of course they try to bring like, oh my god, it's 7 of 9, but of course she's in because we've seen her in the trailers, and I know that she was going to be in for months. So I think that kind of deflated that moment for me personally, but I'm still very interested, of course, to see what they do with her, how they bring her in, how they tie her in, and I would love to see her interact with Picard. I think this is going to be really interesting, so I'm really curious to see what they do next with her. But as far as this episode goes, not much to talk about. It's kind of underwhelming as a shocking reveal. Anyway, also in the episode we got some more stuff with Soji and the brother sisters, who are definitely, a lot of people were pointing out how sexualized they are and how they're playing. It seems like they're trying to go for the Game of Thrones thing, the Cersei Jaime thing, where having brother and sister sleeping with each other, even though they never said it yet. But this episode definitely, the way she was crawling on top of him. Yeah, they're definitely lovers. I think this episode makes that crystal clear. And it's not that I think, oh my god, they're brother and sister, how dare they? It's more of, why? It does seem like they're kind of just trying to be like Game of Thrones, and that's it. There doesn't seem to be any other reason for doing this, and these characters themselves I'm not really on board with so far, particularly the Nirik guy, I believe his name is, the hot Romulan, the way he's trying to seduce Soji to get information, and I've heard some other reviewers say that it's probably the most predictable thing in the world would be that he falls in love with Soji and ends up not he betrays the Romulans, his sister or whatever, and that would be 1000% predictable. So I really hope they don't do that, because that would be way too telegraphed and cliche. I hope to God. And especially seems like they're setting up for that. The way that his sister's being a creep to him, and he's like, oh, it does seem like they're setting him up to betray her. Just don't have him fall in love with the android, please. God damn it. Anyway, Soji herself, I'm also not as interested in. I honestly think that Raj was a more interesting character, and they made a mistake by killing her in the first episode and having this Soji character. You could arguably it's the same character, because it's not only their sisters, but really it's their same models of an android, so technically you could argue it's the same character, or as close to it as you could, but I don't know. I just felt the setup and the introduction to Raj was a lot, or Daj, sorry, whatever the hell her name was. Anyway, I thought it was a lot more interesting, and I'm not as interested in Soji in this whole I don't know. Like last week I said I was totally on board for like the prophecy thing, but I don't know. I don't know. I think they had to do more with this Borg reclamation thingy to flesh out what the hell is going on. But, you know, overall, this whole episode, it did remind me of, like, a lot of Season 3 Enterprise episodes, or, like, a lot of other sort of, maybe Discovery did this a bit in Season 2, and a lot of, like, the serialized spaceship shows, where, like, someone has, and I guess Enterprise Season 3 does this a lot, but they have a mission, they have a specific place to go to. Like, we need to get to Planet X. And so they take 3 episodes to get to Planet X, so they have like 2 episodes in between where they get distracted or they go on the sidebar. And that's exactly what this one felt like. So it felt a bit formulaic in that way, because they had to get to the, I can't remember what the hell the name of the planet is, but where they think Bruce Maddox is. And so this is kind of a, you know, Picard has to stop on the way to pick up Legolas. So, you know, there's that, but that didn't bother me too much. Although I just noted that it did seem a bit formulaic in that way. That is necessarily not totally a bad thing, but I just noted that. Anyway, I'm going to say my rating for Absolute Candor out of 10 is an 8, extremely good. I thought this was a much better episode than the second and third. This was much stronger. As I said, it felt very self-contained. It did a really great job of introducing this new character, and it got a really good job of getting me excited about the storyline again, which my interest level was starting to wane after last week's episode. So, I mean, I don't think it was quite as great as the premiere. And some of the stuff with Soji, as I said, I'm still not very interested in. They've yet to sell me on. But overall, enjoying it. I think this was a much better entry than what we got in the last 2 weeks. Anyway, that's it for my review of Absolute Candor. I will return next week while we will finally be back in the US, so I might be able to watch the episode more and go into more detail about the episode. But I'll be back next week to review episode 5. So be sure to check out my channel as I continue to cover Picard and other Star Trek shows and The Expanse. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.